Claire and welcome to my channel. So today's video is going to be me doing some random sampling. I've got 10 fragrance samples to talk about, and these are things that have been sent by subscribers, things that I have just bought myself, and just some of these are brand new, some of them are older, some of them were hyped, some of them were less hyped. It's just a real random mix today, so I'm just going to talk you through 10 of these samples. So if you haven't seen me before, I'm Claire and I make videos all about fragrance. So I talk about perfume science, perfume history, perfume psychology, and I also just do some perfume reviews and also some perfume tags. So if that kind of thing interests you and you haven't already done so, then please do consider subscribing, and please like this video if you do like this kind of content. So let's kick this off with a relatively new fragrance. I think this one was released maybe last month sometime, and this is Pacific Rock Flower from Goldfield Banks. So this is a flanker fragrance of Pacific Rock Moss, which I think is one of their best-selling fragrances. I made a video all about Goldfield Banks fragrances, and I tried all of their fragrances in that video, apart from obviously this one because it wasn't released yet. So I'm really intrigued to try this because I feel like Goldfield Banks have a very particular feel to them. They're very distinctive fragrances, and I'm interested to see whether that signature feel comes through in Pacific Rock Flower. So this fragrance is a real mishmash. It's a floral, fruity, aquatic, slightly marine, but also later on an aromatic fragrance as well. There's lots going on. It opens quite like Pacific Rock Moss with some watery feeling citrusy lemon, but it quickly becomes sweeter. It turns into a powdery cloud, and mimosa is listed, but in no way does it actually remind me of mimosa. It makes me think more of like a powdered meringue. Actually, at this point, it begins to make me think of a very mild, a very toned down version of Jean-Paul Gaultier's Divine. I really do see some parallels with this fragrance, with that fragrance. I guess with that very sweet, but also a little bit marine and a little bit fruity feel. In fact, Jean-Paul Gaultier Divine uses calypsone, and if somebody told me that there was cologne or some other related fragrance molecule like calypsone, something maybe slightly more fruity and a little bit more friendly, then I would not be surprised. With the florals, earlier on I get peony, but really later on nothing really stands out. Along with pretty much all other Goldfield Banks fragrances, this has a slightly herbal and aromatic feel in the dry down, and also some woodiness in the dry down too. So sadly I don't think this one's for me. I'm just not a fan of marine or salty fragrances, and I get both things with this fragrance. Also, I find Goldfield Banks to be quite heavy-handed with certain aroma chemicals, and there's something here that really bothers me in the dry down. But I can see that if you like other Goldfield Banks fragrances, I think this really follows their kind of style, and I think it would be something that you might enjoy, especially if you like that kind of powdery sweet feel that's in Divine, and if you like Pacific Rock Moss, because there is a lot of overlap here with this other fragrance, but it's just sweeter. So yeah, if you want a floral, sweeter version of Pacific Rock Moss, this is the fragrance to go for. So this is Pacific Rock Flower. So the second fragrance is one from Maison Margiela, and I made a big video reviewing a lot of their fragrances about a year ago, which I'll leave a link down below in case you haven't seen it. But this is one of the fragrances that's been released subsequently. So this one's Afternoon Delight, and I think this came out sometime last year. And actually, weirdly, when I was watching people review this one, a lot of people were saying they blind bought it and it wasn't as they expected it. And I kind of know what they mean, having tried it. So to me, this is a milky vanilla fragrance overall, if you want a quick summary of what this is like. But there are also kind of cakey elements to this. So this opens quite like a vanilla extract. It smells almost like a cold custard, very vanilla-y. As this dries down, it turns into something smelling more like a baked cake, but you still do get a custardy edge to this, and it's also slightly plasticky in a way, somehow. This actually makes me think of those madeleines you get in France, which would make sense because madeleines are actually listed in the Accords. But I really wasn't expecting to smell madeleines. This also makes me think slightly of vanilla yogurts. There's something almost creamy about this, but it's more milky overall. I think really in the back of my mind, there's the thought of my mum making me sugared milk when I was going to bed. She'd put a little bit of sugar in some milk, and then she would microwave it. This is a really odd fragrance. There's something that's not quite delicious. There's something that's not quite right about this one. There are elements of this that are absolutely, things that I should love, but there's something just holding me back from this one. So yeah, not for me. That's Replica Afternoon Delight. So the next fragrance is one that I got intrigued by because I noticed there was a new release in this line and I really wanted to try actually the new release, but I managed to order the wrong sample. So I got Atelier des Fleurs Cedrus instead of Cedrus Intense. Hadn't tried this one either, and this is the Quentin Biche fragrance, so I was intrigued to see what this was like. I've tried quite a few from the Chloe line, and there are some that I really enjoy, and then there are others I'm just not so bothered about. So what's this one like? So this, I really do feel like it has Quentin Biche's signature elements. It has that transparent intensity that he seems to form in a lot of his fragrances. And that's really evoked by the citrus at the beginning and then the really long-lasting woodiness of the fragrance. Overall, this is a woody aromatic fragrance, as you might expect in a fragrance named Cedrus. So this opens with a cool, sparkling bergamot, and there's definitely a silveryness to this. I would say it's oak moss, but it doesn't have that really extreme bitterness that you sometimes get with oak moss. It doesn't go quite that far. This does have a slight soapiness about it though, which could be oak moss. This doesn't really change too much, it just gets warmer and woodier as it dries down, and the citrus does sort of linger, but it does dissipate slightly into the dry down. This fragrance feels woody and fresh and gentle and clean. I do quite like this actually. It makes me think of a more gentle, less sparkly version of Chloe Nomad. It doesn't have that kind of bite that Chloe Nomad has. It's not quite as loud either, it's softer. To me, this fragrance is a really good woody aromatic. If you really love Biche fragrances, it's very of his style. To me, this fragrance makes me think of dry citrus groves in hot sun. It makes me think of Mediterranean landscapes. And I think actually a hot, dry climate would really enhance the smell of this. It would make it smell even cleaner, I think. So that's Cedrus from Atelier des Fleurs from Chloe. So this next fragrance is from a brand I've never tried anything from before, and I was really excited to try something from this brand because I think this brand does have quite a few hits. And this one's called Insulo, and it's by Jeroboam. And I'm not sure whether this one's discontinued because it's quite an old fragrance, but I love this. So this is a kind of almost court sugar kind of vanilla. It's very much along the lines of something like Chelsea Morning in a way, but without the citrus. So it's like that court kind of caramelized, almost maple syrup kind of feeling sugar, along with licorice. And licorice I wasn't expecting. It's not listed in the notes on Fragrantica. I was totally taken aback by that. And that really gives it a kind of almost licorice toffee feel to me. It's quite a linear fragrance. It doesn't really change that much. It goes slightly smoky almost into the dry down, but it doesn't really evolve too much. It really is just a kind of licorice toffee, smoky vanilla kind of fragrance. It's almost like the far dry down of Vanille Planifolia from Guerlain. It's that kind of almost spicy, smoky vanilla that you get in that fragrance. I just really love this kind of vanilla. This is my type of vanilla. And I love those kind of resinous feeling fragrances. And this is me to a T, this one. But I do feel like maybe because it's so linear and because it's just one smell pretty much throughout the fragrance, would this just bore me? I'm not sure. But yeah, smelling it from a sample, it's delicious. And I think this would be a really lovely winter fragrance. And I will be wearing this throughout the winter. So yeah, that's Insulo by Jeroboam. The next fragrance is one I've been meaning to try for a very long time. So this one is Lost Alice by Masque Milano. And this is sort of notorious for the one that everybody loved at the time, I think. This was the one that captured people's imaginations and, it had people describing these big tea parties with Alice in Wonderland. And I really wondered what I'd get from this fragrance. So this fragrance to me opens up, it smells like buttered scones, literally butter on fruit scones with some tea. It's literally an afternoon tea for me. And it makes me think of a particular walk I went on. So there's a particular walk near where I used to live. So I come from Cambridgeshire in England. And in Cambridgeshire, obviously, everybody knows Cambridge, don't they? But there's a really beautiful walk if you walk from Grantchester towards Cambridge, and you can walk along the Cam. And there's a particular place in Grantchester that serves cream teas in this huge garden under trees. And this fragrance really brings me back this memory of having a cream tea or just a plain scone actually buttered in this garden with a cup of tea on a really hot day. It just transports me to that memory. And I really love this fragrance just for that, because it's taken me somewhere on just the opening. As this dries down further, it actually makes me think of traditional English cakes like walnut cake, things like that. It's got a kind of nuttiness to it, but also something more sweet and more sort of buttercreamy almost, but not quite as sweet as that. The nuttiness here is more like a texture, so it's got a powderiness that grows into the dry down. I just found this one really interesting. I can totally see what captured people's imaginations with this one. And there is a kind of vegetal edge to this, which I imagine is the carrot, but it comes off as quite sweet actually. It's a really interesting fragrance. I'm not going to wax lyrical about, a spread of Alice in Wonderland, etc. That's literally what I get. I get sort of scones, I get cakes, and I get powderiness. And I just think this one, I can see completely why people loved it, because it just is an amazing fragrance. And I think I'd be perfectly happy to own a 10ml of this fragrance, just like I would with several other fragrances from Masque Milano. I think the brand is beautiful. So for the next fragrance, let's go back to designer. So this one is Narciso Rodriguez for Her Intense. So I think this one came out either the beginning of this year or the end of last year. I think it's quite a recent release, this one. And I was really intrigued to try this because I didn't really enjoy the original EDP of this fragrance line. As you know, if you watch me regularly, I'm not someone who likes that kind of powdery peach patchouli combination. And it's just not something that I tend to get along with, because I feel like it comes off quite plasticky on my skin. And I wondered whether it'd be the same with this, or whether they've kind of changed it a little bit. So I was intrigued. So this, when I first sprayed it, I did get a plasticiness, and I thought maybe it's the vial, I'll try it again. And again, I got a plasticiness. So it clearly does still have that kind of plasticky, peachy, patchouli kind of combination in some format. But I don't think it's as strong as it is in the original EDP. I really feel like they've tried to modernise this fragrance a little bit. This one feels a lot sweeter than the original EDP. The peach eventually turns into something that smells almost like a peach schnapps. That kind of dry but bright feeling sweet peach, really, overall. And then along with that, there's a dry feeling vetiver and a dry feeling musk into the dry down. And the vetiver and the musk are really the stronger things in the far dry down. I got over 12 hours wear out of this, and I could still smell it on my skin. So there's definitely no problems with lasting power, but it does go quite quiet quite quickly actually. I think this one, for me, it's personally easier for me to wear. This is something that I don't love, but I can tolerate it. Whereas I feel like the EDP was something that I really struggled with because of the powdery peach and that kind of plasticky feel, which I think is actually decalactones, isn't it? I think that's what they use for peach. It's the same thing that you get in the classic Gucci Rush, which I also struggle with, even though I sort of see that fragrance as really inventive. It's something that it's just never really been for me because of my slight dislike of peach. But yeah, I'd really be interested to know what other people think of this fragrance compared with the EDP, because I feel like if you love the EDP, you might not love this one. So that's Narciso Rodriguez for Her, and it's the Intense. So the next fragrance is one from Hermes, and this one is Eau d'Orange Verte. This fragrance is a citrusy aromatic fragrance, and I've just been in a mood where I've been loving citrusy aromatic woody fragrances. So actually, I think I did try this one in store a while back, and I kind of dismissed it because I think at the time that wasn't my taste. But now I'm in this summery mood, and I've bought a few citrusy aromatic fragrances, so I feel like this one is right up my street. But I can totally understand if you're someone who doesn't love that kind of fragrance, because I really genuinely didn't only about a year ago. So this one is a green feeling orange and soft lemon fragrance. The greenness here is coming from a smell of something like a tomato stem. It smells like a tomato that's quite far off. It's got a slight earthiness to it, but there's also a slight mintiness. It's not a really strong in your face kind of mint. Everything is very gentle in this fragrance, and it's really the citrus that is the star. There's also a nice muskiness to this, and that's always a bit of a warning sign in citrus fragrances for me, because sometimes when you get citrus and you get musk, it can go down a kind of fougere direction when it's got an aromatic lilt. and you can get this kind of grainy musk coming in, and I don't get that with this fragrance. It's a really nice, light, airy musk, and in the dry down you can still sense the citrus, even though it is quite soft and gentle by that point. Clearly this is a citrus fragrance and it doesn't have the best longevity, it doesn't have the best projection. I really like this one, but I feel like I've got enough of this kind of fragrance in my collection right now. I don't need another one. But retrying this has made me want to go and revisit those other fragrances in this particular line and just see whether I've missed something. I remember really liking Narciso Bleu from this line. I think that one's sadly discontinued now and is gone. I missed the boat with that one. But I really enjoyed that one, so I will go back and retry these. This is Eau d'Orange Verte by Hermes. So let's stick with design. I'm going to talk about a brand that I don't normally talk about on my channel. I don't think I've ever mentioned this brand on my channel. So this one's Lacoste, and this is a brand new release from Lacoste. It's called L1212 and it's the Silver Rose Flanker. So I just tried this on the off chance, really. I just sort of saw a free sample opportunity and decided to give it a go. And this fragrance really opens with very noticeable grapefruit and then also a very fresh, light pink rose. And then as it dries down further, you get a shampooey feeling freesia coming in. And then finally, you get a musky cashmere dry down, quite a sweet, musky, floral cashmere dry down. And in the dry down, when I smell this fragrance from further away, just in the air, it really reminds me of a fragrance actually in my collection. And that fragrance is Alien Mirage. These two fragrances are really pretty much identical when you're smelling them from further away. I guess they're both floral, slightly metallic feeling, kind of aquatic feeling, floral cashmeres. And yeah, I'm amazed. I really honestly could not believe the similarity between these two fragrances. So Alien Mirage is long discontinued, and I feel like a few people, when this got discontinued, were feeling like they'd missed out and like they wanted to smell it. So I would advise anybody who feels like they've missed out to go and smell this fragrance, because to me, they're very similar in the dry down from further away. This fragrance I got quite good longevity out of as well. Probably not as good as the Mugler, and it probably wasn't as strong as the Mugler, but it wasn't bad at all. So yeah, L1212 Silver Rose by Lacoste. So the next one is another designer again, and this one is Burberry Goddess Intense. So I tried this fragrance, having quite enjoyed Burberry Goddess. I didn't love Burberry Goddess, it wasn't me, but I could see why it had a mass appeal. I could see why it was so successful, and I can totally understand why people would love that fragrance, because it has that really delicious dry down where that cocoa really makes the fragrance. It doesn't necessarily smell chocolatey, but it gives it a richness, and I feel like the cocoa is a very important element in that fragrance. Burberry Goddess Intense, to me, is completely different to Burberry Goddess. The lavender is really amped up. It's just a lot stronger in the opening, and I feel like that could be off-putting to some people. I personally don't mind that, but I feel like that could be really something that could be a no from a lot of people's points of view. I feel like the special thing about Burberry Goddess is that the vanilla and the lavender are initially quite fluffy feeling, and that's really been lost in Burberry Goddess Intense. Burberry Goddess Intense is also much darker feeling. It's got patchouli, and also the thing that really stands out for me is whatever they've used for the ambery feeling aroma chemical. I have no clue what it is, but I've smelt it before and I don't find it pleasant. There's something that I really dislike about Burberry Goddess Intense, and I feel like it's whatever they've used as the amber molecule. So yeah, I don't think this one's for me. I think I just prefer the original Burberry Goddess, because I just feel like it's got a nice fluffiness, it's got a kind of gourmand edge to it in the dry down. It's just more delicious overall, and I feel like that magic has been lost in Burberry Goddess Intense for me. But yes, I'd be interested to know, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer Burberry Goddess, or do you prefer Burberry Goddess Intense if you are a Burberry Goddess fan? So the final fragrance is again from a brand that I just haven't spoken about, and I've had these samples a while. Fiona sent me these, and she sent me quite a few from this brand. So the one I'm going to talk about is Supermoon. So I tried Tennis Club, Marbella, and I also tried Costarela separately from the samples that Fiona sent me. But this one was my favourite. So this opens with a soft citrus and cassis, so it's more the green leaf of the blackcurrant, but still with quite a lot of fruitiness. And the blackcurrant really takes a back seat quite early on, the pomegranate takes over and you get more of that kind of texture that's almost a little bit like cranberry juice coming into this fragrance. It initially smells quite sparkly, but then later on it goes into a drier amalgamation of the fruits in this fragrance, along with some gentle but indistinct florals, some warm woodiness and a slight muskiness in the background. I think with this one, my socks are very much on. It's likeable, but it's nothing that wows me. I think I felt like that with Marbella and also with Tennis Club, really, and also Costarela. Costarela was really the one that wasn't me. That's a marine, kind of woody, citrusy fragrance. Just not me at all. The Tennis Club one actually reminded me of something akin to Colonia or something along the lines of 4711 by Eau de Cologne. Marbella, again, is another ambery blackcurrant. Blackcurrant's so rare in fragrance. I'm surprised to see it in two fragrances from Carner, but for me that one just felt a little bit less interesting than Supermoon. I'd be interested to know if anybody owns any fragrances from Carner and which one they would suggest that I try. I don't think any of these four have been for me. So yeah, that's Carner Supermoon. So that's the final fragrance. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have enjoyed the video, then please press the like button and please also consider subscribing if you haven't done already. And please let me know if you've tried any of these fragrances and what you think of them. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.